Welcome to Tomorrow Ready, quick LTC insights from JMA, a series where we provide you, employee benefits professionals, with news, tools, and views about group long-term care insurance planning.
Welcome back to Tomorrow Ready. I'm Ivette Garzon. I'm here with Steve Cain. Let's hop right into it. Steve, you have your thumb on the pulse of all things legislative activity, and it sounds like states are talking about programs, but there's no legislation that's imminent. So I'm kind of taking it that you can't lead with legislation right now.
That's right. And I never thought that was a great tact in the first place. Certainly, we had to talk about legislation because it was imminent or it was taking place in certain states. But I really think you got to reframe the conversation. And, I think long term with this too, how do we make this resonate with employers and then employees? And it can't be because you're going to get taxed, right? That's the question
Yeah.
is how do we do this? And we think there's a better way via financial wellness and retirement readiness conversations.
I've been in the life insurance industry for about a decade now, and it seems like no matter which focus of the life insurance world you're in, leading with stats are just not working.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm one of these behavioral science nerds where I read everything I can about behavioral economics and finance. And, what I've learned is that people buy based on emotion. Most of us, about 70% of America, or the world for that matter, buys based on how they feel, right? And a lot of times the statistics just reinforce how we feel. And so, shame on us as an industry, Yvette. We used a 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some care at some point, statistics, forever, right? I mean, people are still using it out there, even though it's been debunked and it's a much lower number. It still didn't drive the activity that we all wanted. Like, we're not logical, right? I could throw stat after study after you study, stat after stat. You can go to the cost of care maps, but it didn't drive the activity or behavior that we wanted, which is people to enroll in group plans. So we got to move away from the stat and talk holistically about financial planning.
Okay, so stats aren't driving enrollments. So then what is?
I think number one reason is personal experience. People only fix big problems, right? If they don't perceive a problem to be big, they don't take action, whether it's in their personal life or professional life. So when you think about what drives behavior, it's pain. Unfortunately, I don't mean scary with statistics, but I mean I'm dealing with my 84-year-old mom, and it's painful from a
Yeah.
financial standpoint, from a caregiving standpoint. It's painful, and from a healthcare, delivery standpoint. And so once somebody feels it with a loved one or mom and dad, that's when they take action.
So we're talking about framing the conversation, right? And we're trying to find a different aspect. So can you dive in a little bit deeper on what that means?
Yeah, I think you got to marry the long-term care conversation with retirement planning because that's what it is. Yes, we do see people that unfortunately pass away untimely, or get into an accident or get diagnosed with cancer and need help today for long-term care. But by and large, it's people that are older. And so that means framing it from a financial planning and retirement planning perspective. So we're suggesting that you marry this with the retirement readiness and financial wellness programs that you've got right now with clients. This is a great way to protect the retirement decisions people are making, to protect the integrity of their nest eggs and their lifestyles. And, I think it's just a much more comfortable conversation with clients that are, heavy into the 401ks.
Yeah, and Steve, I kind of dug into some 401k data, and it's just shocked me how unprepared we are to handle
Yeah.
a long-term care
Yeah.
event.
We have to do better. Like, first of all, contributing to 401ks as a country, we have to do better. But beyond that, what can derail somebody's retirement, financial planning and retirement? Well, the number one risk is healthcare. And I'm one of these nerds that reads, from Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, you name it. I read all that literature from 401k companies out there, and they're saying your number one risk is healthcare. And then if we narrow it down even further, long-term care is the biggest healthcare risk in somebody's retirement years. So, we just have to do a better job framing these conversations and making sure that people know that this is about long-term retirement planning. In addition to, the plans that provide you life insurance today in terms of an untimely death. Really, this is about tomorrow too.
Yeah, what I'm taking away from this is that it sounds that we need to reframe this conversation away, like you're saying, from a specific risk and stats and think the bigger picture, right? How can I protect my 401k and think of it as financial readiness and wellness? And where does this fit into my retirement planning?
That's it. And that's where we're, if I look to the not only the engagements or enrollments that do particularly well, but also the brokers that are having success initiating these conversations, that's the conversation that they're having. They're not leading with tax avoidance, right? They're not leading with a product per se. They're saying, hey, let's look at the life stage planning of your employee base, and there's a hole here. And we can plug that hole with a worksite life plus long-term care plan. And we can marry it to the existing conversations that you're having with your employees about retirement readiness or financial wellness.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Steve, and for our time out there for our broker partners. If there's a specific topic that you would like us to chat about, please drop it in a comment below. Follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and we'll see you next time on Tomorrow Ready.
See you, everybody.